Hello, everyone. I hope all of you are doing great like you always do, right? So welcome to Studentink. Welcome if you're new here. I'm Lakshita. And Studentink is a community जहाँ पे हम बहुत सारे educational content, videos, lectures सब provide करते हैं आपकी overall exam preparation के लिए. Right? So every time we come on board, we get some really interesting faculty जो आपको बहुत interesting सा lecture पढ़ाती है ताकि आपको quickly आपके सारे doubts resolve हो जाएं और आपको हर topic के बारे में in depth knowledge. Okay, so today also we have the same teacher who took your geography last time with us, who will be giving you very amazing insights and outlooks on how the earth actually revolves around. What are the things inside the earth? What are imaginary lines that are there around the earth? So we are going to learn all of this interesting topic, but just in a minute. So in that minute, what we are going to do, you already know the drill, like, share, subscribe, right? And जब तक आप वो करते हैं, make sure that you share the link with your friends. Till the time I'll share my screen with you and I'll show you where you can find all this amazing content. Okay, so this is what the Studentink application looks like. जब आप Studentink application open करेंगे, so there is Student World over here. Okay, so when you go and click on Student World, you are going to find all your lectures lined up here. ठीक है, सो यहाँ पे डेट वाइज आपके सारे लेक्चर्स जो भी होने वाले हैं वो सब आपको पता चल जाएंगे, जहाँ आप डायरेक्टली जाके अपने कैलेंडर में ऐड कर सकते हैं और जब भी वो लेक्चर होने वाला होगा उससे पहले आपको उसका नोटिफिकेशन आ जाए ताकि आप हमारा ये सारे जो इम्पोर्टेंट लेक्चर्स है ना जो आपको एग्जाम के लिए प्रिपेयर करवाने वाले हैं वो मिस ना करें. देन वी हैव वाउचर्स. सो नाउ व्हाट आर वाउचर्स? वाउचर्स आर स्टफ जो आप रिवॉर्ड पॉइंट्स के थ्रू खरीद सकते हैं. अब रिवॉर्ड पॉइंट्स क्या है वो आपको यहाँ पे आके देखना पड़ेगा, बिकॉज अगर फ्री में आपको डिस्काउंट कूपन चाहिए तो रिवॉर्ड पॉइंट्स देखने के लिए तो आपको एप्लीकेशन पे आना पड़ेगा. बट वी हैव ऑल दीज अमेजिंग वाउचर्स ऑफ केक शॉप्स एंड टूर्स एंड ट्रैवल्स एंड शू शॉप्स, पिज्जा शॉप्स. ओ माय गॉड, सो मेनी शॉप्स. सो वी हैव इट ऑल. जो भी आपके घर के आसपास के वेंडर्स हैं, स्कूल के आसपास के वेंडर्स हैं, उन सब के डिस्काउंट कूपन यहाँ पे. सो वहां पे जाने से पहले यहाँ से डिस्काउंट कूपन लेके जाना वरना डिस्काउंट नहीं मिलेगा. Okay, then we have these courses. So we have all these important objective tests and advanced courses prepared, जिसके थ्रू आप लोगों को बहुत सारे important questions जो आप लोगों के एग्जाम्स में पूछे जाने वाले हैं वो सब पता चले. और ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है क्योंकि एग्जाम्स आ गए हैं. ओके, एग्जाम्स आर जस्ट आउटसाइड योर डोर. तो अगर ये नहीं लेंगे तो आप कैसे पढ़ेंगे एग्जाम के लिए? आपको कैसे पता चलेगा एग्जाम में कौन कौन से क्वेश्चंस बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है जिसके पूछे जाने के चांसेस बहुत ज्यादा है, राइट? सो मेक श्योर कि आप वो सारे क्वेश्चंस अटेंड करें और ये ऑब्जेक्टिव टेस्ट आप सिर्फ रिवॉर्ड पॉइंट्स के थ्रू भी ले सकते हैं. ओके, सो यहाँ पे आप सिर्फ अगर आपके पास रिवॉर्ड पॉइंट्स हैं तो आप उसे परचेज करके इसे यूटिलाइज कर सकते हैं. सो मेक श्योर यू डू दैट. एंड अबव ऑल वी हैव these categories, ओके, जिन्हें आप यूज कर सकते हैं. इसके अंदर बहुत सारा फोकस्ड फ्री कंटेंट है जिसे आप यहाँ पे यूटिलाइज कर सकते हैं. यहाँ पे आपको इतनी सारी अमेजिंग इंटरेस्टिंग वीडियोस मिलेंगे that you will feel very you'll feel very there's a different feeling when you see such interesting intriguing videos जो आप पूरे YouTube पे ढूंढते रहेंगे but you will not find it. So those are the important content जो आपको यहाँ पे मिलेगा with focused information, ठीक है, ताकि आप इधर उधर ना गुम हो जाए YouTube पे ढूंढने के चक्कर में. So इतना सब कुछ आपको मिलेगा, that too for free. So make sure you don't really miss out on this opportunity. And we are already running slightly late today. So without any further ado, we have Gitanjali ma'am with us. Gitanjali ma'am took your geography session last year, day before as well. And her geography session was very amazing. Kids loved it. So अगर आप लोगों ने अभी तक ज्वाइन नहीं किया या आपके फ्रेंड्स ने ज्वाइन नहीं किया तो उन्हें जल्दी से बता दीजिए कि गीतांजलि मैम आ गई. ओके, ताकि मैम का सेशन कोई मिस ना करे. So without any further ado, Gitanjali ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Lakshita. Hello kids, good afternoon and welcome back once again to my geography session on the Studentink platform, and hope you enjoyed my last session. This is just a continuation of the last part. And today, as you could see on the title, we would be discussing about the Earth and how to look at the Earth. So, लास्ट टाइम जैसे मैंने बताया था कि हमारी दुनिया गोल बताई जाती है, बट वी डोंट फील दैट वी आर लिविंग इन अ round planet. I mean, do you feel that if you are actually living on a round object? क्योंकि जब मैं स्कूल में थी, जब मैं क्लास में पढ़ती थी, the first question I asked my geography teacher was, if the earth is round, अगर मेरी दुनिया गोल है, then why do I feel it is completely flat? Why don't I fall off? अगर मैं यहाँ दुनिया के किसी जगह पे खड़ी हूँ तो मैं गिर क्यों नहीं जाती? Why do I not fall off but I'm standing? And why do I feel that everything is flat? Although the truth is that the world is a sphere, I don't see it as a round object. So the scientific reason for this is the size of the Earth. The size of the Earth is so big that we don't feel that we are standing on a round object. We are so small compared to the Earth. It's like अगर मैं यहाँ पर एक चींटी, एक ant को डाल दूं, तो how will the ant feel on this ball? The ant will not realize that it is sitting on a ball. For it, it is a flat surface. In the same way, compared to the size of the Earth, we are very small. So we feel we are living on a flat surface, not on a round surface. So that is the first realization I got as a student, that although in reality it is a round planet, I feel I am living on a flat surface. Okay. So today we will be discussing about the imaginary lines of the Earth. So the Earth does not have any lines in actual. In reality, there are no lines, but for our understanding and better study, scientists and geographers, they have imagined, they have drawn few lines on the surface of the Earth to trace places, to locate places. And these lines are called the latitudes and longitudes, jo last session mein some students wanted to know. So today we'll be talking about the latitudes and longitudes and other imaginary lines. There are a lot of imaginary lines and many other aspects about the location of the Earth. Okay, so people who study about the location of the Earth, about the position of the Earth, they are called cartographers. They are also geographers, but they are cartographers who study maps, who study places, the distance, the location. So who are the cartographers? They make the maps. So cartographers and geographers, they trace the horizontal and vertical lines. These lines are called latitudes and longitudes. Okay. Now to show you the actual picture of the latitudes and longitudes. I hope you can see the latitudes and longitudes. So if you see this picture here on your screen, so you see the grid. It's called a grid. When you draw the imaginary lines across the surface of the Earth, it looks like a grid. And this grid consists of segments. And in these segments, there are, you can see in certain segments, there is the existence of land, and in certain segments, there is the existence of water. So when people have to travel from one place to another, they take the direction or they measure the distance with the help of these segments. So these latitudes and longitudes help people to travel places and also measure the distance between any two places, which is very important, because if you want to travel somewhere, you have to know how long will it take to reach there. So accordingly, you will make your preparation. If it takes 2 days, you will make a preparation for 2 days. If you have emergency, how far, what should be the speed of your travel, all these measures you can take. तो जैसे किसी को जल्दी जाना है तो they take a flight or they travel by super fast trains. All right. So this is the political map of the world. And in this political map, you can see the different countries. So people from one country travel to another country, and when they travel, they have to make arrangements. So how do they measure the distance? Suppose you are flying by plane. So they have to see the direction, they have to see the distance. So all these, they don't manually measure all these. ऐसा नहीं कि एक measuring tape लेके हम दिल्ली से मुंबई तक measure कर रहे हैं कि कितना लंबा रास्ता है. So we divide the earth into certain segments because of these imaginary lines, and these imaginary lines help to measure the actual distance. There is a formula which we will discuss maybe in some other sessions, which gives you the answer to the distance between two places in miles and in kilometers. Okay. So getting back to the imaginary lines. So what are the imaginary lines? They are the lines drawn by the cartographers. Okay. So this are the imaginary lines which has got the names. So first we have the axis of rotation. जो मैंने पहले सेशन में बताया था, जो ये मिडिल ऑफ द अर्थ से लाइन सोची जाती है, इमेजिन किया जाता है, जिसपे अर्थ रोटेशन कर रहा है, that is the first imaginary line, and that is called the axis of rotation of the earth. Okay. Next, the second imaginary line is the orbit of revolution around the sun. We all know that the earth revolves around the sun. If my hand is the sun, so the earth revolves around the sun and we get one complete year, 365 days. So the path of the earth which it takes to revolve around the sun, that path is called the orbit of the earth, and that is also imaginary line. Like for our earth, there is no road. It is completely empty. It is open space. So space में हमारी जो धरती है सन के इर्द गिर्द घूम रही है और उस रास्ते को ऑर्बिट बोला जाता है. That is also an imaginary line, the path. Then the next imaginary line, which is very important, is the equator. And as I discussed in the last session, that the middle of the earth is bulging out in reality, which is like our stomach bulging out sometimes. And the line drawn across the middle of the earth is the equator. And equator is a very important line in geography. We will discuss the importance of equator. Then we have the IDL, or the international date line. Now we all know that India is having day, like abhi din ke 4 baj gaye hai. In India we are having day and it is 4 o'clock here. But in some other parts of the world, suppose opposite to India, if this is India, the other side of the world may be America, USA. So India is having day 4 o'clock time now, but US is having maybe night. They are sleeping right now. They are still to wake up. So how do we understand? And in certain countries like Japan, the day is about to get over, where the sun is the sun has already set and the night is getting over. So to understand the time, the different time zones, these are all time zones. Like when we are having 4 o'clock afternoon in India, maybe we are having 7 o'clock in Singapore, or we are having 2 o'clock in London, something like that. And in US, in America, we are having a night right now, nighttime right now. So there is an international date line running across the earth to divide the earth in the time zones and to understand the rotation also. So I'll discuss the international dateline also if possible. And then we have the prime meridian, or the GMT, which is Greenwich Mean Time. Because as I told you, if one part of the earth is having day, the other part may be having night. If one part is having morning, the one other part may be having afternoon. So there will be a lot of confusion and chaos for people if we follow a uniform time for the whole earth. So we have different time zones, and these time zones are measured in relation to the GMT time, which is the Greenwich Mean Time. That is the starting point of time, okay, for our earth, the time zone for our earth. Then we have the Arctic Circle. Now the Arctic Circle is a very cold place, and it is on the top of the earth. If we imagine that the earth is sitting in this position in space, the top of the earth, which is also called the North Pole, around that, this place here is called the Arctic Circle, which is very cold. Why it is very cold, that we will discuss later. Accordingly, at the bottom of the earth, towards the south, if we see here, this is the Antarctic Circle, which is also very cold. Now, these two places are always covered with snow. They have more of snow than water, and it is always cold. The temperature is always in minus. It is so cold. And then we have the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. Now these are very important imaginary lines which are used in geography to understand about the places of the earth, their features and other things, and also to travel from one place to another. And accordingly, we will discuss most of the imaginary lines here today. Okay. Now, if you I'm trying to share. Okay. I hope you can see the exact slide on the screen. The Earth is not sitting straight in space. It is tilted on an axis of on its axis at an angle of 23.5 degree. Okay, as you can see in this slide, the Earth is sitting at an angle of 23.5 degree, and if you see this dot, the black dotted line across the middle of the Earth, that is the equator, which is passing through the middle of the Earth, through the center of the Earth, and the angle of the axis and the equator is 90 degree. The measure of the equator to the axis, which is, these two lines are totally imaginary. Okay, the coordinate and the axis are in math geometry, you study the coordinate and the axis are. So the axis is the perpendicular, is drawn perpendicular to the equator, or you can also say otherwise, the perpendicular, the equator is always perpendicular to the axis of the Earth. So they make a 90-degree angle, but in reality, the axis passes through the center of the Earth, and the Earth is not sitting straight in space. It is sitting at an angle of 23.5 degree. So in the diagram, you can see the difference. Okay. So this is the equator. It has to pass at an angle of 90 degree. It has to be at an angle of 90 degree with the axis. Okay. And the Equator is the largest line across the surface of the earth. अभी हमारे अर्थ के ऊपर से बहुत सारे imaginary lines नेम किए गए हैं, उनमें से सबसे बड़ा जो सर्कल है, जो लाइन है, ये सर्कल ही हुआ ना, because it is going around the world. That equator is traveling around the world. If it starts from here, I draw the equator, it again comes back to the same point. So it is a circle. So it is the biggest circle which is drawn on the surface of the earth. Okay, I hope you understand. And there is a speciality about the equator. Now, if you look at the picture, the equator is dividing the earth into two equal halves. So if you see, the upper part is the north, the northern hemisphere, and the lower part is the south, the southern hemisphere. Now, the English word hemisphere consists of hemi and sphere. Sphere means a ball. So you must have heard semicircle. Semi means half. In the same way, hemi means also half. So hemisphere is half of the earth. So we have the northern hemisphere, which is above the equator, and we have the southern hemisphere, which is below the equator. Now, the property, the physical condition of the places which are above the equator is very different from the physical condition of the places which is below the equator. Okay, and what is the speciality of the equator? The speciality of the equator is that because it is at the center, at the middle of the earth, it receives direct sun rays. Now I'll show you a picture. I'll show you a picture where you can understand what is the position of how the sun rays okay. So this is a picture. It takes time. Okay, I hope you can see the picture. So this is this direct sun ray fall on the equator. So the places at the equator are very hot because they receive direct sun rays from the sun. Whereas if you see the upper hemisphere, the northern hemisphere, especially towards the poles, they receive slanting sun rays, and the power of the sun rays, they are less than that of the equator. So the places above the equator gradually becomes cooler. जैसे हमारे इंडिया में जो नीचे का हिस्सा है वो बहुत गर्म है, मतलब southern part of India is quite hot and northern part of India is supposedly cold. It is also because of the altitude, as I have explained to you, but it is also because of the distance away from the equator. Because as you go away from the equator, the rays of the sun fall slanting. The power of the sun rays become lesser. So it is cooler as you go towards the north. In the world map, if you see the northern countries, the countries which are in the northern hemisphere, like Canada, upper parts of England, France, upper parts of Russia, the northern part, anything north on this earth consists of cold countries and mostly snow-covered countries. And I told you about the North Pole and the South Pole. Now, North Pole and South Pole are very powerful places because they have the magnetic effect. You must have played with magnet, Hindi में जिसको चुंबक बोलते हैं. So they are having this power of attraction, and that magnetic effect exists on our earth also. You know about the gravity of the earth, right? So that gravity of the earth comes mostly because of the elements on the earth. And in the north and the south pole, the magnetic effects are very different from the magnetic effects on the equator. Now, why it is so, that is again another topic we have to discuss. So the north and the south, And one interesting thing I would like to share with you children. Last session I told you that the earth consists of water, mostly 70% of it is water. In the similar way, our human body is also 70% or more of water. That's why doctors, they ask you to drink water. And in this season, in the summer hot season, you should drink more water, because our body consists of water. And 70% of the world is also water, and 70% of our body is also water. And सबसे interesting, just like the world has a north pole and a south pole, even our body has a north and a south. Okay, if the north and the south is the, you know, the top and the bottom of our body, what would be the equator of our body? You know, the equator is very hot, I told you just now, because the sun rays fall directly on it. So if you compare it with the human body, we are a part of the earth. So if you compare it with the human body, what is the equator in our body? The navel point, the nestle, वो जो नाभि बोलते हैं हिंदी में, वो हमारा शरीर का इक्वेटर समझा जाता है. And that is also very hot, because the food we eat, the digestion happens in our stomach. And if you know, acid is produced in the stomach, which is very hot, and it helps in the digestion of the food. And sometimes it becomes overheated and we fall ill, you know, हमें medicine लेना पड़ता है, कुछ ठंडा खाना पड़ता है, क्योंकि पेट गर्म हो जाता है, कभी-कभी तो सर भी गर्म हो जाता है. So there is North Pole, South Pole, and the equator. Okay, and I have found this similarity with the human body also. This is an interesting fact. Okay, so you can, coming back to geography, you can see that the sun rays are falling directly on the equator. So the places on the equator are very hot. Now, on this map, you cannot see Africa, but if you see, this is India, and that is Sri Lanka. So the southern part of India, you know, is very hot. They said Chennai is very hot. Tamil Nadu is very hot because it is near to the equator. It is closer to the equator. In the same way, you have Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is also very hot. And here you can see some island countries, maybe Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and all those countries. So these countries are also very hot because they lie on the equator. Okay. Okay. Now getting back to another topic. Now, geography is mostly pictorial, okay? No matter how much I speak, you have to understand the images. The concept is better understood with images. I don't know why the share screen. Even last time, I was not sure if the slideshow was possible. I hope children, you are seeing this image. Yeah. So I hope you're seeing this image on the screen. So you can see these circles starting from the North Pole. Okay, and as we go down towards the equator, the circles become bigger and bigger. And as I told you, the equator is the biggest circle on the earth. And these circles, they are drawn parallel to each other. Now in maths, you know what is parallel, right? Geometry में parallel lines, you know, जैसे रेल की पटरी है, वो parallel lines है. Two lines which are equidistant from each other at every point. No matter what, they shouldn't be like this because they will meet somewhere. They are parallel, means they never meet. What is the definition of parallel lines? They never meet. So the circles running across the earth from the equator towards the North Pole and the South Pole, these are parallel lines. They don't touch each other. They are always equidistant from each other at any point. आप इधर ईस्ट की तरफ जाओ या वेस्ट की तरफ जाओ, they are always equidistant. Okay, they never meet. And which is the biggest parallel here? The equator. So if equator is the biggest parallel, which will be the smallest parallel? Obviously, the North Pole and the South Pole. These will be the smallest circles here on this sphere, right? So you can see the blue lines. The blue lines are shown here as latitudes, jo leta hua hai, and these are parallels. Okay. So in these blue lines, I talked about the equator, and you can see here on this globe, Africa. This is Africa, and we all know Africa is very hot. Most countries in Africa, the continent of Africa. Now, Africa is a continent also. There is a country also called Africa, South Africa. Like America is a continent, and there is also a country called United States of America. So Africa is the name of a continent also. And in this continent, you have many countries. One of the countries is also Africa, South Africa. So African countries are very hot because Africa is mostly situated on the equator. Okay. And then what are the other countries you can see near Africa? If we come towards the right of Africa, you can see the Gulf countries, the Middle East. So these countries are also very hot, and we know the deserts of the world are in the Middle East. The deserts of the world are also in Africa. Parts of Africa has desert, the Sahara Desert. So, and then coming back to the longitude, if you see the pink color lines, which are drawn from the North Pole towards the South Pole. In this picture, you cannot see the South Pole exactly, but it is mentioned here. So these pink lines which run across the earth from top to bottom. Again, they also make a circle. They start from the North Pole, suppose they run across, and then they touch the South Pole, and then they again come back and meet where they started. So all the lines are basically circles, okay? Whether you are drawing the latitudes or whether you are drawing the longitudes, they are all circles. But the latitudes are parallel, the longitudes are not parallel. The longitudes are not parallel because they come and meet at the center. All the longitudes come and meet at the center, in the sense the north and the south, the top and the bottom. Okay, not the center here, the north and the south. So there is a difference between the latitudes and longitudes. Whereas the latitudes are parallels, they are equidistant. The longitudes are meeting at the poles, the North Pole as well as the South Pole, as you can see in this image. Okay. And if you see the distance between two longitudes, just like in this ball, is the greatest in the equator, at the equator. At the equator, the distance between two longitudes is the greatest. And as they move towards the poles, it becomes smallest because they go and meet at the poles. So ये formula, ये जो theory है, ये याद रखना है that between 2 points of longitude, the distance is greatest at the equator and smallest as they go towards the poles. It may be going towards the North Pole or it may be going towards the South Pole. Okay. और पिछले सेशन में मैंने बताया था कि the latitudes and longitudes are measured in degrees, minutes and seconds. Okay, and this is not the times, minutes and seconds. So you can see in this picture, the North Pole is having a measure of 90 degree. Why it is having a measure of 90 degree? Because it is perpendicular to the equator. Okay, here you can see in the image, it is perpendicular, it is at a 90 degree angle to the equator, and the count starts from the equator. The equator is the 0 degree latitude. From 0, it keeps on counting and it goes up to 90. So 90 इस साइड में हो गया, नॉर्दर्न हेमिस्फीयर में 90 हो गया, फिर साउदर्न हेमिस्फीयर में भी 90 हो गया. 0 से स्टार्ट होता है. इक्वेटर इज द 0 डिग्री लैटिट्यूड. तो 90 प्लस 90 टोटल कितने सर्कल्स हो गए हमारे अर्थ में? लैटिट्यूड्स वाले सर्कल कितने हो गए? 90 प्लस 90 टोटल 180 डिग्री, which is in geometry you have studied 180 degree is a straight line, right? The angle of a straight line is 180 degree. So see, maths is connected with geography here. So you have these latitudes which starts with the equator 0 degree and it graduates towards the poles to 90 degree. So 90 degree plus 90 degree, total we have 180 latitudes, okay, the circles. In the similar manner, we have the longitudes, okay. We have the longitudes, and in the previous slide, I told you there is something called the Greenwich Mean Time, the GMT, to start counting the time zones. So you can see in this picture the 0 degree line. I hope this picture of the globe is visible here. So the 0 degree line is passing through a place called Greenwich, which is a small village in London, England. इंग्लैंड में एक छोटा सा जगह है ग्रीनविच, जहां से ये 0 डिग्री लाइन पास होता है, and there is an observatory here. Now, why did the world give this position to Greenwich? The world gave this position to Greenwich because many years ago, hundreds of years ago, there was an observatory there, and people studied the space and things about the earth from that observatory, and they made a lot of discoveries from that royal observatory. And when they were counting the distance of the earth with all these imaginary lines, they considered a line passing through that place as the starting 0 degree. So the 0 degree started with the Greenwich Mean Time. Okay, that is the starting of time in on our earth. So any place on the earth, any country of the earth today gives its time measurement in relation to the GMT. तो GMT के जैसे हमारे इंडिया में भी एक टाइम है, उसे बोलते हैं Indian Standard Time, IST. Now, how is that standard time calculated for the world or calculated for a country? That is again a different formula. आप लोगों ने मैथ्स में पढ़ा होगा कि एवरेज, we find average when there is an exam and you score different marks in different subjects. Last में क्या बोलते हैं, आपको कितना परसेंटेज मिला है? What is the percentage? It is nothing but the average of your marks in all the subjects. In a similar way, जो भी एक जगह है, सपोज हम ये येलो पार्ट इंडिया समझ लेते हैं, तो इंडिया का जो टोटल डिस्टेंस है किलोमीटर वाइज, ये लॉन्गिट्यूड से लेके ये लॉन्गिट्यूड, वो सारे लॉन्गिट्यूड्स का एक एवरेज लिया जाता है. ओके, जैसे आपके मार्क्स के परसेंटेज का एवरेज लिया जाता है, उसी तरह ये लॉन्गिट्यूड्स का एवरेज लिया जाता है. और जो भी एवरेज होता है, एवरेज मतलब द मिडिल पॉइंट, द मीडियन, उसी को स्टैंडर्ड माना जाता है. तो हमारे इंडिया में क्या है, हमारे इंडिया में इलाहाबाद करके जो जगह है, जो वेरी ऑस्पिशियस भी है, सेक्रेड भी है, तो इलाहाबाद में जो लॉन्गिट्यूड है वो इंडिया के लिए मीडियन है, द इंडियन स्टैंडर्ड टाइम, उसी को लेके माना गया है. If you have traveled across India, because we stay in India, and if you have traveled across India, all right, there was a slight inconvenience here. So if you have traveled across India, then you must have observed that the eastern part of India, जो ईस्ट वाला साइड है इंडिया का, वहाँ सुबह जल्दी हो जाती है, और जो वेस्ट वाला साइड है जैसे हमारा राजस्थान, गुजरात, मुंबई, वहाँ सुबह बहुत लेट होती है. एंड बिकॉज सुबह जल्दी होती है, जहां सुबह जल्दी होती है वहां शाम भी जल्दी होती है, और जहां सुबह लेट होता है वहां शाम भी लेट होता है. Like people who have traveled to Mumbai, they are aware that in Mumbai the sun doesn't set sometimes till 8 in the night or sometimes 9 in the night. Why? Because it is in a different time zone of India. It is towards the west of India, whereas some places in Arunachal Pradesh, maybe in Arunachal Pradesh the sun rises very early in the morning, like maybe 4 o'clock. Yes, I have been to Arunachal and sun rises 4 o'clock in the morning. 5 बजे तो पूरा धूप हो जाता है, and they have evening around 4 o'clock, मतलब 4 बजे अंधेरा हो जाता है. So that is because Arunachal is in a different time zone of India and Mumbai is in a different time zone of India. But we cannot have different times in India कि अगर अरुणाचल में अभी सनराइज हुआ है, सुबह है, तो मुंबई के लोग तो सो रहे होंगे बिकॉज अभी तक सुबह नहीं हुआ है, तो ऑफिस का काम सब उलट पुलट हो जाएगा ना. पीपल विल बी स्लीपिंग समवेयर, पीपल विल बी अवेक समवेयर, so the country will be at a chaos. So in the same way the world will also be at a chaos. So every country has formulated their own standard time so that every part of that country, whether it is in the eastern or western or the central part, follow the same time zone, and offices for business, for politics, for education and other purposes, they execute in a proper manner, and business is done and countries run well. So you see, geography has a very important role to play even in the running of a business or the politics of a country, because the time is maintained because of the geographical understanding of the location of the earth or the situation of the sun, the position of the sun at different places. So the Greenwich mean time, which is a 0 degree longitude, as you can see in this picture, is considered the starting point for counting the time zones across the earth. Okay, so exactly opposite to the 0 degree, मतलब 0 degree line अगर इस तरफ से शुरू हुआ है, ये अगर ईस्टर्न वाला ये वाला हिस्सा है, ग्रीनविच वाला हिस्सा है, तो ये सर्कल जाके पीछे इधर भी खींचेगा ना. तो जो पीछे वाला हिस्सा है, बिल्कुल ये आगे वाला हिस्सा को ग्रीनविच मीन टाइम 0 डिग्री, और जो पीछे वाला लाइन आके यहाँ होता है, इसको बोलते हैं IDL, the International Date Line, which is not showing here in this picture because it is on the other side, which they are not showing. It's a 2D picture. So there is the International Date Line. The IDL divides the Earth into day and night. तो जो जापान है, जापान is called Nippon. Nippon in Japanese means the land of rising sun. So हमारी दुनिया का जो पहला सनराइज होता है वो जापान में होता है, ऐसा माना जाता है, because the IDL passes through Japan. So because the IDL passes through Japan, imagine here is Japan. So Japan sees the first sunrise, and then what happens? Suppose this is the sun. My fingers are the sun, and this is the earth, and this line here is Japan. Now the earth is rotating. Okay, now do you know the direction of rotation of the earth? What do you think is the direction of rotation of the earth? We all know that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, but the sun is not moving. The sun is fixed at a point somewhere in space. In reality, it is not fixed. It is also moving, and we are moving with it. But let us consider that it is stationary. It is not moving, and the earth is moving. So what is the direction of movement of the earth? It is west to east. Because the earth rotates west to east, we see the sun rising from east and setting in the west. Now, how can you understand this theory? You can understand this theory if you have traveled in a vehicle. Suppose आप बस में या ट्रेन में बैठ के किधर जा रहे हो, तो while sitting on the bus or the train, बाहर जो भी चीजें हैं वो आपको ऐसा लगेगा भाग के पीछे की तरफ जा रहा है, बिकॉज यू आर गोइंग इन द फॉरवर्ड डायरेक्शन, यू सी एवरीथिंग गोइंग इन द बैकवर्ड डायरेक्शन, राइट? So because the earth is moving from west to east, we see the sun rising in the east and setting in the setting in the west. So you have to remember this, that the motion of the earth is west to east, and we see the sun rising from east to west. So जो ईस्ट वाले कंट्रीज है उनको पहले सनराइज मिलता है, जैसे जापान, ऑस्ट्रेलिया, सिंगापुर, एंड दुनिया जब घूमती है फिर other countries of Asia, they get the sun and we get the morning. India, China, and then the African countries, the Arabian countries, the European countries, और लास्ट में किसको मिलता है धूप? अमेरिका में जाके दिन खत्म होता है, मतलब 24 आवर्स का जो रोटेशन है वो अमेरिका में जाके खत्म होता है, पर खत्म बोलने के लिए होता है, पर वहां जब सनराइज होता है जापान में ऑलरेडी नाइट हो गया। मतलब अमेरिका में जब लोग जागते हैं, जापान में लोग खाना खा के सो जाते हैं। ओके, सो today we started a little late. I'll try to cover another important topic if possible. Okay, I hope you can see the screen here. So on this screen, you can see the lines of latitude. As I told you, they are parallel lines. And here, the pink line here is the equator, which is the biggest circle. And as you go towards the poles, the circles become smaller and smaller. You can see that. Okay, these are the latitude. And accordingly, you have the longitudes. So here the pink line again is the prime meridian, which is the 0 degree Greenwich line. And ये circle जो पीछे की तरफ complete होती है उसको क्या बोलते हैं? IDL, International Date Line. Okay, so these are the lines of longitudes. और मैंने जो बताया ये parallel नहीं होते हैं, they are not parallel because they meet at the poles. They meet at the North Pole and the South Pole. And the greatest distance between the longitudes is at which place? It is at the equator. इक्वेटर पे उनका जो गैप है बहुत बड़ा होता है, और जैसे जैसे वो नॉर्थ या साउथ की तरफ जाते हैं वो गैप कम होता जाता है, बिकॉज दे ऑल मीट एट द पोल्स. ओके, आई होप यू अंडरस्टूड. All right, Lakshita ma'am, I guess I wouldn't be able to take a new topic because the time would get over very fast and I would be stuck in the middle. What do you advise? All right, thank you, children. I'll end the session here. Hope to see you again in future. Okay.